things are once again not turning out in favor of Donald Trump in the 2020 election. While he had several legal matters he was pushing with regard to voting in the states that he lost, the court system has turned him at nearly every turn. It continued to not go his way on Tuesday in Pennsylvania Supreme Court. It ruled 5-2 that the ballot processing observer in Philadelphia connected to the campaign did not have a right to stand any particular distance away from election workers. It's up to counties to decide where poll watchers are allowed to stand. This is narrowing the president's options considerably. He has refused to concede and insisted the election was being stolen from him. Yet, he has been turned away from the courts so far because he cannot produce evidence of voter fraud. The Pennsylvania Supreme Court overturned an earlier decision. His campaign had considered the prior decision a win, despite it not amounting to any more votes in Trump's column. Nevertheless, it propelled the argument in Pennsylvania that there had been voting fraud. News of this recent defeat was released during a break in another hearing. Giuliani was arguing that there could have been widespread fraud in absentee voting in Pennsylvania. The court was on a break because a public access phone line went down. It was explained in the state's high court that the campaign observer at the center of this complaint, Jeremy Mercer, was able to do everything he was allowed to under the law when he observed ballot processing in Philadelphia. While Mercer claimed he couldn't see signature declarations or other markings on envelopes, the court explained he would have only needed that information if his primary motivation was to challenge individual ballots. Yet, as an observer, he wasn't allowed to challenge individual ballots under state law. Specifically, Attorney Mercer witnessed board employees inspecting the back of ballot envelopes containing the voter's declaration, before sending them on for processing, witnessed ballots being removed from their secrecy envelopes, and naked ballots which had been delivered to the board without a secrecy envelope being segregated from ballots which arrived within such envelopes, saw that the ballot processing methods utilized by the board were not destroying the ballot envelopes containing the voter's declaration, and perceived that the ballot secrecy envelopes were being preserved during their processing, wrote the state Supreme Court in its opinion. As found by the trial court, Attorney Mercer was able to appropriately observe that the board's employees were performing their duties under the Election Code, continued the opinion. Republican Thomas Saylor, the Chief Justice of the Pennsylvania Supreme Court, wrote in his dissent that the Trump campaign's apparent goal to throw out votes would be disenfranchisement, writing that he failed to see that there is a real issue here. He highlighted that issues over how an election is administered could be addressed by the courts before the election and even by trial courts early in the ballot counting process, but not much later as the Trump campaign is trying to do. There have been, and will always be, some localized irregularities, he wrote when describing the election process. This is why courts are open throughout the election cycle, as here, to remedy these just as quickly as possible. It is also one of the reasons why we have a Commonwealth Court with expertise in election matters, and organized to act expeditiously via single-judge consideration. Saylor and his colleague Sally Updike Mundy split with the rest of the justices because they believed the case was now pointless since the processing of ballots in Philadelphia is nearly complete.